Hello and welcome to another episode of Star Wars Alliance. Of course, I'm your host, Clay, and with me, like always, not as forgettable as I thought she was, just a little hiccups apparently today,
Look,
is Katie.
y'all, I have had way more energy the past 5 days, which I am super happy with. Like, I read this book, y'all, and this book is not that long, but I read this book in a little under 6 hours, which
Wow.
it has been taking me because you have to read this one physical, and it has been taking me like weeks to read things physical. So, are we on the upswing with the pregnancy stuff? Maybe? Who knows?
Hopefully. Because I'm not a woman. Or how about this? I am unable to get pregnant. Um, but with what Abby went through, I know that there should come a time where you start getting your energy back, the sickness starts to dwindle a little bit. But then the doctor was like, hey, by the way, all of that will come back in the last 2-3 months. And it's just like, oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm not like I puked this morning, so it's not like fully gone, but like I'm so happy to have energy back. Like I've been getting off work and basically going, okay, it's time to go to bed. Like
oh,
nothing.
that has been my entire life for about a month now with what I do. It absolutely sucks. Joe did not tell me that I would get old man syndrome as soon as I moved to Indiana. Because the moment I moved here, I have been going to bed at like 9 o'clock and I have been waking up at 5. I don't like this. I want my old life back. I want the stay up late all night playing video games, Clay, not the old man. Hey, I need to go to work. Okay, I need to go to sleep. That's all I do nowadays is I work and I sleep, and that sucks. But
Well, I am happy you're sleeping, at least, because you would get on and you'd be like, "Yeah, I haven't slept in 36 hours," and I'd be like, "What the fuck, Clay? What the fuck?"
it was a problem. It really was a problem. There would be days where I'm like, oh well, the new MCU TV show is on, and then the very next day, Star Wars would be on. It's like, well, I guess I'm not going to bed yet now, and so I would watch that, and then Amazon Prime Video would come out with like an episode of The Boys, and I'm like, well, I could probably go one more day. And, I would just extend it over. And of course, I know a lot of people are like, Clay, you could just watch it the next day. There's so many people out there in the world that live off of the satisfaction of spoiling things for people.
Yeah.
So I feel the need to always watch it immediately.
Yeah.
So, like,
Same.
as soon as it comes on, it's just like, okay, I need to watch it. And so that's
And like
why.
I'm gonna
Oh, go
feel the
ahead.
same way with Percy Jackson next week, even though I've read the book like 5 bazillion times. And I'm gonna be like, okay, but like I still need to watch it first thing in the morning to avoid spoilers because like that's just what people do.
Oh,
And
yeah,
like
no.
I want to save people.
I I read that book 4 times last week.
Yeah.
4 times.
It's so
Uh,
good.
really excited, and, I'm just gonna say, me and Katie might have something in store for you guys, via Patreon, so, be on the lookout for that when Percy Jackson comes out. Did you see the link that I sent you, on
Yeah,
the DOA chat?
the discussing film.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're gonna be avoiding reviews or anything, but it looks like they're gonna be dropping tomorrow, so
Yeah, that's awesome for because like we've seen it with the Lucasfilm and Marvel shows, and like to drop the embargo a week before the show premieres, like that's really good
yeah,
for what has been on Disney Plus recently. So
yeah. Very, very exciting. Um, but today we are going to be talking some news. There has been one piece of news that has actually been a little bit louder than the rest of them recently. And I say
and
recently, I think
Solo.
it's in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's a really interesting conversation people are having, and I want to make some comments on that and read some comments to you to see how you feel about it. Um, we'll be talking some news, some fight back on the rumors of Mandalorian season 4, as well as, of course, our main topic being the review of Star Wars Jedi Academy Book 1, Jedi Search. So
And don't forget the book announcement. We got a book announcement.
we have a book announcement? Oh,
Did you
we
miss
do
this?
have I shared the tweet. Yes, we do have a book
Yes.
announcement as well. Is so do you want to start with that? Where do you want to go with this?
Yes, let's talk about it. Okay, so the very first bit, and I think this was actually the very first bit of news that like dropped after we dropped last week's episode. But August 6th, 2024, and sorry y'all, I'm using my phone because technology sucks. That's all I'm gonna say. Um, so August 6th, 2024, Steve Barnes, which he wrote the Cestus Deception for Star Wars Legends. He is authoring a new book about Mace Windu entitled The Glass Abyss. And long story short, on the summary, after the Phantom Menace, Mace Windu journeys to finish Qui-Gon Jinn's last journey.
This is interesting. I did not think in the year 2023 or 2024 for that matter that we would be getting a solo Mace Windu story.
Right?
This is awesome. I really like this. Now, of course, most of the time when I am talking about Mace Windu, it is majorly in the times of the Clone Wars, of course. And I'm talking about how much of a dick he is to both Anakin and basically everybody else. But I think it's more so because I just don't understand him.
Yeah.
I don't have enough criteria to be like, "Oh, this is why he like the way he is." I need more of this. I need
Mhm.
more Mace Windu content, and that's what I want.
Which we're getting the comic starting in February.
Mhm.
Um and like to get this book now, like that's two pieces of Mace Windu content, not to mention the Living Force, which is going to go into the Jedi Council right after Master and Apprentice. Um and so we're kind of getting like before Phantom Menace, after Phantom Menace
Yeah,
with this.
and
And
I think
so
that's
I
really
think this
cool.
is such a smart move. Um, Probably going to be the only two books we see that aren't High Republic from Random House
Mhm.
Worlds next year, I would say. We might have like a late November, December book come in, but like this is awesome. Like to see the prequels just get like a full year of dedication from uh, Random House Worlds is just awesome. I think because like we have gotten Brotherhood. Don't get me wrong. Like Brotherhood was a great book, but like we're not seeing any sequel content or any original trilogy content. It's
No.
like prequel right now. And we talked about this. Like, where do we think Star Wars is going to go for comics last week? And I said prequel trilogy. And these Random House Worlds book indicate where they're going back to the prequel trilogy, start filling in blanks.
I think so, which is really odd. And I say odd just because there was so much covered in Clone Wars. You know? Like in total, that is 7 total seasons.
Hmm.
And if you're looking at regular broadcast TV, that is nearly 9, 10 years worth of content, you
Yeah.
know? So like for them to want to be like, hey, let's go back and cover some things here, I'm all for it. Because again, there's characters there that we know in passing, and we could probably look up a wiki and learn a thing or two from that, or look at some of the legend stories that may have like one or two characters referenced and all of that. But like Plu Koon is another character that I
Yeah.
absolutely love and would love to know more about them. so like there's just random things that they could literally just like, okay, we want this character, we want this character, we want to do this and this,
Yeah.
and just kind of drizzle some of the stuff that we do know in there, and then boom, you're good. You have they have a great recipe already for just future content to begin with it within the well, not the sequel, the prequel era. So I really enjoy that this could be like the staple for what will be Star Wars content for quite some time. Hopefully.
Yeah, and you've gotta think, like, The Phantom Menace to Attack of the Clones is the biggest time gap between the films at 10 years.
Hmm.
Attack of the Clones to Revenge of the Sith is only 3 years, and, like, I don't see you putting, like, a comic into that because, again, like you said, we got the Clone Wars, which
Hmm.
9 years of content basically, but that's 3 years of, like, the Jedi lives boiled down. Now, don't get me wrong, there's other Jedi that you can feature, like, from that era and go into it, but, like, you're not gonna do Anakin Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ahsoka content in that time frame because the Clone Wars gives you that. So, I'm really excited by this. The cover is also badass. I love this.
I
Um,
love the way like the arch of his lightsaber is one side of the Jedi symbol, or no, what is the crest? This is the
uh,
um
this is the Jedi Order symbol.
yeah, the Jedi Order symbol, and then his robe is the other. I Whoever is designing these, great. That is amazing. I don't know if this was commissioned or if like they were just like, hey, make a really badass Mace Windu cover, and then that's
Yeah.
what they came up with. Um, but either way, loving this, love the choice. Now, do you think because of our predictions, and you even said we're getting two books next year that aren't High Republic, possibly a third if anything comes up. And again, yesterday, well, not yesterday, but this was literally, I think, like right after or the day after last week's episode. We had even said, they don't need to jump on to Comic Cons or anything like that to make these announcements because of social
Yeah.
media. So, do you think that? Because how many did we get last year? Uh we got Brotherhood. We had
Brotherhood,
Tales
Shadow of the Sith, and I think that was
Tales
it.
of the Jedi and Sith, right?
I was just counting Random House Worlds.
Oh, okay,
Disney
okay. Random.
Publishing.
Well, okay. Well. Then Random House Worlds. It's Shadow of the Sith. Then which one? Brotherhood,
Brotherhood.
and then the Red Blade. Wasn't that Random House?
Red Blade was this year, so you're talking about
Oh,
last year.
oh, it was this year. That's right. It was early this year. That's right. It was before Comic Con.
Yeah. So
Um,
this year we got Jedi Battle Scars, and Rise of the Red Blade,
yes. Last
uh,
year, Brotherhood
as well as From
and
a Certain Point of View Returns.
oh, that's right, and Returns.
And again, y'all, we're not counting High Republic in this. That's its own.
Yeah, like
Like they're done by the
that's
same team, but like,
that is the initiative. We already know that's the initiative here. What I was trying to say is, do we think like if you saw for a fact that the next book, when I say next book, I mean like the surprise book at the end of the year of uh of 2024 is in fact a prequel book, like does that set it in stone for you, like, oh, this is where we're going to stay for a while?
I think so. And again, like because we talked about it last week with mainly the comics. Um, but it's just like with the shows continuing to progress forward, I think we're going to see less and less sequel content, and more like, hey, let's fill in some other gaps and try and see what happens. The other book we got last year was Princess and the Scoundrel.
Ah,
Um,
yes, yes,
so we
yes,
got
yes.
3 last year, and then we got Rise of the Red Blade, Jedi Battle Scars. I think that's been it this year. That's not High Republic. because we got 2 High Republic books.
Yes. Well, didn't we just say returns?
Oh yeah, returns. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we
Yeah.
got 3 this year too. So we could see a third one come into the November, December timeframe.
Yeah, for sure. But either way, this Mace Windu book, a very nice surprise, very, very fun. What else do we have on the docket?
So the next bit of news we have is actually comic related for the High Republic. Um Ty Yorick, if you remember her, from the High Republic Adventures comic series, as well as The Rising Storm, she is going to be making her return in another mini series for Dark Horse, or it not another mini series because Dark Horse wasn't publishing the High Republic Adventures at the time, but Dark Horse, Star Wars: The High Republic Adventures, Saber for Hire, a
Oh,
four-issue
yes.
miniseries, is kicking off April 10th, 2024. Um, Saber for Hire finds Ty facing new challenges behind the Nihil Storm Wall. Though she's busy and earning credits, life is getting complicated. Ty has taken on an apprentice, and a storm is brewing that will see her clashing with old enemies as well as friends.
I just want to say I love their lightsaber. Like just the design of their lightsaber,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Um, but uh I will say this because I am allowed to say this. It's not a secret whatsoever. We should be getting these now. We did get in contact with our uh, Dark Horse representative, and we should now be on the list. For some reason, I wasn't receiving books for like half a year, and so now we are on the list, and we should be getting that short when it comes out. And I believe that is April
Yeah, April 10th.
is when it's coming out. So that's
So
going
we
to be a
get to
lot of
review
fun.
the first issue right before I go on maternity leave. Um, the other thing is that the Wave 2 books for the High Republic Phase 3 are out and available for pre-order on Amazon, which also means that summaries are up in the air. And I
I
sent you
did.
one.
I so is this
That is
the
the Tears of the
summary for the
Nameless, the
Tears
second
of the
young
Nameless?
adult book.
I decided not to read it. So I was like, I kind of want to keep this one,
It's
especially since I don't know if this is a secret or not. I'll go ahead and say it. Since we are planning on covering Master and Apprentice,
yeah,
and we're going to kind of go deeper into like the mysteries of the galaxy and you said that the nameless are dropped there as well.
yeah.
So I kind of want to go in blind to phase 3.
Mhm.
I know that I look
Yeah.
up a lot of things. It's part of the territory with podcasting.
Yeah, it is.
I look into everything. I want phase 3 to be as shocking as it was when I read Load and Greatstorm get completely dusted. Like that's how surprised I want to be.
I'm gonna go
Like
cry now.
it was like I genuinely feel like the High Republic was such a of course brand new thing, but it was such like a breath of fresh air to me when it
Yeah.
came to Star Wars content that like it felt like it was new. Like Star Wars was something new to me again. And so I was like, oh, this is
Mhm.
awesome. And so I feel like that's how I want to hopefully not in the High Republic, because I'm sure most people assume that after phase 3, they're going to be moving on to something else. But if it is the end, I want it to be a complete surprise to me. I want it all to be just like going blind and that's it.
Yeah. I did read them. I read all 3 of them. I have no shame. Um, Again, like I said, when we found out that Phase 3 was gonna have, like, a more spaced out release window, like I said, I wanna know like ASAP, but I don't ever want it to end. So yeah, that's yeah. So I read them and I got all of them pre-ordered. So the adult book is supposed to be coming out in July. The young adult book is coming out in September, and so I believe the middle grade was August. So
Okay.
that's where you can expect them to be at. Um,
So
all right.
our next story
Yes.
has a rumor and then a contradiction literally days after. So we'll talk about both. You posted this, and we even talked about it in the GUA chat because it was a little bit of a newsworthy topic throughout Twitter. And so there was a lot of people talking about it. The idea that The Mandalorian season 4 is reportedly being turned into a movie, and it will be the next movie that gets released via Lucasfilm Star Wars. I said bullshit. Bullshit. Just because it just didn't feel right. Now, you made me lean just a little bit to the other side when talking about, oh, well, this would actually free up Pedro Pascal. And, if they decide to kill him off in the movie and do
Yeah.
all these other things, so that way he could go freely off into these other new things that he's planning to do via, of course, the MCU with Mr. Fantastic. He still has, as of right now, doing Last of Us season 2. Don't know how
Yeah.
much further they're really trying to push that, but I do know that they are going to be trying to go for a season 3 as well. So Pedro Pascal, we know, has become a very, very big name, and people want him.
Yeah.
So he's going to be all over Hollywood. He can't be stuck with the Mandalorian. He just can't. Like,
Even
as
if
much as
it's
we
just
would
voice
want to.
acting.
Yeah.
Even if it's just voice acting for the rest of the time that he's in there, which Star Wars fans don't want. Star Wars fans have loved seeing Pedro Pascal's face on the screen because they're some of the most emotional scenes that we've gotten in The
Yes.
Mandalorian. Point blank. Um, so I would rather see him go out than continue to voice act and we never see him again. And don't get me wrong, like I know they've explained it with the plot and everything, but like we are fans, we are meant to be serviced, as Brit
Yes.
likes to say.
Yes.
So like you've got to like figure out how to bend the rules. Plus, nobody in the world friggin' likes cults. Okay. And I'm sorry, but Din got sucked back into the cult and we just want him to be free. Okay. No, I'm really I'm really not picky on if this is a movie or if this is a TV show. Um, other than the fact that if Pedro needs to be gone, then and
Well,
do less work,
because
that part.
here's the thing for me. Like I was always the person that was for movies and not for television.
Mhm.
Um, I kind of got my ass handed to me by an actual actor at a Comic Con, Manu Bennett from, of course, Arrow. I opened my big mouth on one of his panels, and he just like basically told me to sit the fuck down. Um, because I told him, like, I was stupid enough to say, like, oh, I don't know why all these people are saying that Spartacus, I think he was in, is such a big deal. I know you from Arrow. I was being a stupid fan. Um, and asked him about wanting to do uh DC movies being Deathstroke, because we didn't know at the time if Arrow
Yeah,
was going to be a part of the DCU, blah blah blah, or DCEU, whatever. And he talked to the rest of the fans about this idea, how there were bigger stars wanting to get into the roles of TV because it's more content. Their face is on the camera longer than they would be on a movie screen,
yeah.
and eventually that paycheck gets bigger and bigger and bigger per episode and everything else.
Mhm.
So I have kind of switched. Like, I love movies, but I really do love the TV shows because I get to see more content overall. Um, so that's my only worry when it comes to something like this. You the amount of time that you have to tell that story, what would have been a season 4, it is now truncated to, okay, we have to cut this, we have to cut this, we have to cut this, and we'll add this, and boom, it's a movie. You know?
I yes, but also I know as soon as this movie comes out for the Heir to the Empire, which we assume is what the season 4 movie would be. As soon as
Hmm.
that's done, basically I'm thinking the Mandoverse is over. And like we kind of like split off and like Ahsoka may continue doing her thing, might get involved with Luke doing the Jedi Academy a little bit, but Jon Favreau is so talented, and I want to see him work on other shows other than The Mandalorian.
I would love to see him go back to the MCU. Um, but I also would like to see him behind the camera in other places as well. So I totally agree with you there. Um, for me, it's just what exactly is going to be cut for the sake of it being a movie, you know? Because ultimately that's what happens when it comes to things like that.
And I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing at all. But they were going to have to rework it anyways with the new WGA guidelines because Favreau and Filoni and maybe Famuyiwa were the only ones writing on the show. And Filoni
Hmm.
and Famuyiwa were like 1, 2 episodes max.
Yeah.
They were the only ones getting writers credit. So they have to bring in a full team of 8 writers to match the episode count.
So do you think that this idea of it being a movie was literally just to be like, hey, we don't need to add all those writers because we'll just make it a
You
movie?
still have to have multiple writers for a movie. I
Well,
think the minimum is like
I
2. But yes. Uh, and I'm not saying like that's the biggest excuse, but I'm saying like they were going to have to rework the show anyways
mhm,
to fit the new guidelines. So if you're looking at it and you're like, my main star is being pulled in all of these directions, and right now for Disney, MCU makes more money than Star Wars.
yeah,
So he truly is Reed Richards. MCU's gonna be like, no, you need to cut his contract. Like, I need him. I need him for the rest of time, kind of thing.
yeah,
I and like y'all can if people are laughing at me when I say that, like I'm fine with that. But like that's literally studios are in this to make money. And you can't go, okay, the star that I want for the Fantastic Four, which is going to have at least 3 solo movies probably, as well as being probably 3 or 4 team up movies and
mhm,
like cameos and stuff. Like I want to be able to pull him wherever I want. And having him be a part of your universe is not going to work with that.
yeah. No, I agree.
So yeah. If they decide to cut the show short because of that, and maybe that's their transition point where they move Grogu back to the academy, or Grogu finally gets to talk and stuff, and they just rework things. But I think ultimately, the Heir to the Empire movie is that transition point where they go, okay, The Mandalorian as a show has ended, but I'm still going to use the characters in other places to do what I want to do, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Very true. Very, very true. We'll see what happens. Well, the contradiction was, let me actually grab that one, was
Was
the
that
fact
it was going to be a TV show.
that it is still gonna be a TV show. Um, and do we know who said this?
So Jeff Snyder said the movie comment, and Besman Bulletin has checked with 2 sources, that have both said it's still going to be a TV show.
Okay.
Because the TV show comment was a Besman Bulletin exclusive, and Besman Bulletin does typically have very good sources, um, and with their exclusives have been a lot of times right. The reason we don't talk a lot about their exclusives is because they like to source some not so nice people in the Star Wars community. But in this case, this one caught a lot of storm, and it's not got a source from those not so nice people. So
Yeah. Yeah. But we
Uh,
shall see. So where do you want to go with the next topic?
so really the only other piece that we have is um Adam Driver did
Yeah.
a podcast interview uh and basically said that the plans for Kylo to turn back to Ben Solo were never officially made. Like that was not the intent at the beginning of The Force Awakens.
So from what I've seen people reiterate or interpret from this was basically like, oh, Kylo Ren was supposed to be like heart set on the dark side from beginning to end. Like there was not supposed to be any change of the character. First, how do you feel about that? Do you
I did.
think that there, because I think I already know the answer, because the answer is not that hard, to be completely honest. I know it's opinion based, but people can be wrong and have wrong opinions all the time. But I want to know from you, are you okay as somebody who reads a lot of fiction, fantasy, and of course Star Wars? Are you okay with there being villains that just stay villains?
Yeah. I hated Bendimtion. That was okay, and Snell can
Whoa,
make
whoa,
fun of this for
whoa,
me.
whoa, 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 whoa. Back up. What did you just say?
I hated Bendimtion.
Bendimtion. Who the fuck came up with Bendimtion?
That was something that was, like, a lot of, like, the Twitter comments, like, right afterwards
Oh,
and stuff.
I could already see the hashtag trying to trend. Bendimtion. Oh god.
Um, but yes, and Snell can make fun of this for me all he wants because he makes fun of me for my rankings of the Star Wars movies all the time. Bendimtion was the worst part of The Rise of Skywalker, point blank.
I can almost agree with you. I feel like I could find something worse with that movie. But okay, just for the sake of the conversation, I will agree with you. But there's this idea, and it's become this thing recently. Um, even so recently as that of Black Adam. I've had this conversation with a lot of friends uh, and coworkers and colleagues like that. This idea that th- just like how there's so many actors, like action hero actors, that have these random contracts, and they're supposed to apparently secret contracts that they're not supposed to lose in any of their movies. They're not supposed to lose a fight. They're not supposed to be punched in the face like on screen
A
and things
rock.
like that. The Rock, Jason Statham, John Cena, like these characters that they can't be bad guys.
Yeah.
And so in some sort like nobody wants to be the villain. And that's the argument that I've had with a lot of people is like there's no more bad guys. It's always people who like, "Oh, they're just misunderstood." No. Like there's just people who are goddamn evil. Like
Yeah.
Emperor Palpatine. He's just evil. If you were to tell me, "Oh, but there's a story out there that he's just misunderstood." Fuck off. No. He's the emperor. Like it's just the way it is. And there's a comment here by uh somebody named Nick. Let me actually see here. He says this whole Kylo thing really just brings to light that there was no reason to redeem him. His entire growth was conditional to the growth of Rey, and people just couldn't accept that he was a static character that was also a plot device.
Yeah. Ray is the hero of the sequel trilogy, point blank.
Yes.
And like the setup that we get and maybe it's because I love Han Solo with all my heart, but like the setup we get in The Force Awakens, I'm sorry, that is not redeemable. Like Han Solo has been built up as this character, and like, okay, like it or not, I'm sorry, but Obi-Wan Kenobi was not built like Han Solo was when he was killed in A New Hope. If you watch A New Hope as the very first Star Wars movie, like you're like, okay, he killed Ben. It's important
Like,
for Luke as
yeah,
a
yeah,
character.
like when you watch it, you're just like, okay, these two people have history. He died. Freaking Luke is devastated by this, but me as the person watching, I don't know what the
Yeah,
fuck just happened. You know,
yeah,
that's how you feel about it. But when you look at Han Solo's story, watching him through all of the original trilogy and then watching The Force Awakens, you should be like, oh no, you're devastated. And there's attachment there.
yes.
And you're right. That is unredeemable. You shouldn't be able to be like, "Oh, you can come back from this."
No, and like I get that that's like the whole point of what the Skywalkers do is that they want to redeem everybody, and that's what Padme was like. That's her trait that she passed on to Luke in particular, because we all know Leia is like, "Fuck you, Darth Vader. I don't want anything to do with you." Like, just a Luke is what she got. You're laughing, but you know it's true. Um, so like for me, killing Han Solo was unredeemable, and I think that's why I don't like Bendemption. And I sent Clay tweets that prove that it has been used recently, um, and not just back in what was it, 2019. So, um, yeah, I hated Bendemption. I didn't, and like even the Last Jedi, Ryan Johnson proves like time and time again in The Last Jedi that Kylo Ren is not supposed to be redeemable because he lies to the hero's face. He uses her own insecurities against her to try and turn her to the dark side. Because that's what villains do. That's what villains do. So,
Yeah. I found the conversations around this so fascinating
it's
because well, go ahead.
it's just super interesting because like most of the people I follow are Reylos. And that if people don't know what a Reylo is, that's Rey and Kylo put together, the ship. Um like so I can fully support like their idealism for like the relationship between Rey and Kylo Ren, Rey and Ben, whatever you want to call them. And don't get me wrong, I have loved some of the Reylo inspired fictions that have like dropped into books. I love them, but I think they're written very differently than what we get in the movie.
100%. Now, in the quote, Adam Driver is talking about uh the direction that they were supposed to go. And then the gentleman Rich asks him, "So what happened?" And I don't necessarily like this. Adam kind of like makes a face. He's like, "Oh, well, Johnson took it in a different direction." He took it in a different direction, but he still kept Kylo the same.
Yeah.
Like there was a different dynamic between him and Ray at that point, but Kylo was still 100% all about the dark side
Yep.
to the point where there was even somebody mentioning it here that he was literally unable to kill his past when trying to fight Luke Skywalker. He was literally unable to do it because Luke wasn't even there. Like he was wanting to get rid of everything.
Yep.
And then they completely reversed that in, of course, Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. And he
I
also says that the dyad wasn't a part of it
mhm,
initially, which to get Bendemption, you kind of needed the dyad thing to work, which I
yeah.
think Johnson does set up properly if you wanted to go that direction. But I still think to The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi is a very good sequel.
Yes, and we will never know what was going to be the direction if the reception of The Last Jedi was overwhelmingly good, you
Yeah,
know? Because I could see, and there literally is I mean, the result is Rise of Skywalker, but J.J. Abrams and all these other people looking at The Last Jedi and be like, okay, how do we fit this to work along with this? Oh, we make them like each other and they kiss at the very end. Boom. It all
yeah,
works out. Like, but it is what it is.
yeah,
Um, I was just really interested in this because, like you said, there's so many people who are Reylo fans, and I feel like when the Rise of Skywalker came out, I did hear an overwhelming more people love the what I guess we are calling Ben Dimson, uh, more so than people who didn't like it. So now seeing this entire change of like, oh, like it never should have happened and he should have always stayed evil and everything else. I'm seeing, of course, I'm in completely different circles now. So these are completely new people to me that are saying this. It's just really crazy at two different points of time how two different perspectives can be louder than the other.
yeah, for
And it
sure.
might be recency bias or whatever it very well could have been. But I genuinely think that I am tired enough of the idea that like bad guys are just misunderstood
Yeah.
because especially in the book that we're going to be reviewing today, um I like the twirly mustache evil villain. That's just like it's classic, and it's not necessarily I'm not wanting to go to the complete stereotype of the twirly mustache villain, but the twirly mustache villain is usually evil to the core and does not sway from that perspective. And I think that's what I want to get. Like it's like I'm tired of people like, oh well, with the power of love, you can be on our side. Like, no, I'm tired of that. I really am. So
I gotcha. I think that's a good transition point, though, to go to our book.
yes, yes. So
So,
we are going to be reviewing, like I said in the beginning, Star Wars Jedi Academy Book One, Jedi Search. This was my first time reading this. Katie's like 1 billionth time, I'm sure.
and this
Um
is I think this is, like, my 3rd time reading it.
So, where do you wanna start with this?
So, okay, so the reason we're talking about this is to kind of get us into the swing of things for what is apparent reportedly right now going to be the next Star Wars movie, the New Jedi Order book.
Mhm.
The New Jedi Order is a book series in Legends, but the New Jedi Order film is why we're talking about this one because Rey is supposed to be starting up a Jedi Academy. It's also something that's very interesting if you if we think about where Favreau and Filoni's story is going with Luke building his academy. Um, so in this case, Leia and Han's children, first two children, Jaina and Jason, get to come home. Luke is searching for a place in New Jedi Padawans that he can train to become a new Order of Jedi Knights. Han and Chewie go off to Kessel, which we all know and love. Um, Lando does get in the mix there, but we also get to like explore the Maw cluster, which is what Han travels through in the Solo. Like not exactly, but like that's what he's in
Th
theory traveling through
there's
in this case.
there is also, like, I guess, an old spin on it because the new spin would be the solo film, but
Mhm.
what happens here is something that I wasn't expecting, and when we get to it, I'm actually gonna say this now, almost unneeded. Now, again, this is part one of a trilogy. So,
Yeah.
like, there might be a greater story that I'm like, oh, I understand now. But like just with all of like the backtracking and history lesson that we get in the middle of this book, I was a little bored, not gonna lie. Like I was just like,
It's a It is a lot of setup, for what's to come. This book was published by Bantam Spectra in February of 1994. So it kind of followed very closely to the Heir to the Empire trilogy, which I believe was 91, 92, and 93.
yes, it was referenced like 3 times in this book. So
Yeah.
uh definitely something that came after. Um I'm trying to think. Uh do you want to go like character by character and kind of talk about their stories, or how do you want to do this?
Well, okay, I kinda wanna talk about character, and then we can kinda go into story beats. So in particular, Admiral Natasi Dalla, and I know this is, like, skipping, like, straight dead smack in the middle of the book, but she is number 4 on a list I wrote almost 12 years ago of characters that I wanted to see come into, Star Wars canon and be made canon. So what did you think about the leader of the Maw cluster? And, fun fact, Tarkin's former lover.
So this woman, who I assume is on the cover of this book,
Yes, she's in the middle, well, of the circle in our
yeah, yeah,
YouTube
yeah.
live.
No, I saw her and I was like, is that Mara Jade? Like I like for a split second, that's who I thought it was. She is kind of pictured differently in the actual description of what she looks like. I did not picture this woman when they described her. They do describe her as like copper hair and things like that, but that just looks a little bit more auburn and whatnot. But this woman, I like her, but she has a little bit of the crazy juice in her. Um, she, the fact that she ugh, just like the thought of her and Tarkin is um she's crazy, crazy, crazy. Um the idea of this character, I'll go ahead and let this be known, because you can't just start talking about this character without giving people the background of this. They're at the center of the mall, but at the same time, well, they're at the center of the mall, and the reasoning behind it is they were basically marooned by the Empire as like,
Mhm.
oh, this is our secret base where we're gonna be. Like, this is where every evil plan is cooked up right here, and nobody
Yep,
will ever find you, and blah blah. So they were there for 15 years. They don't know anything about the destruction of the first Death Star, the second Death Star, or like the killing of the Emperor. They
yep.
literally had no contact whatsoever. And
And this place
so,
is basically a scientific cluster that, like, you can see if you're with us on YouTube, you can see they've got, like, a skeletal frame of the Death Star, that doesn't have, like, a hyperdrive or anything, but the weapon fully works. Um
yeah, like to learn that, like, so learning that like this is where the Death Star was originally built, thought of, blueprinted, like all of that. I think that was really, really interesting. But what was not interesting was this woman's daydream of Tarkin and how he basically built this base with her in mind as like the leader, and like all of it. Like it I think it took like a full chapter. Like it was a
yeah.
lot of information. I was just like, come on, let's like get over it. Like I want to know what happened to the other characters, what's going on. So that was the only downside. But remind me of her name again. I'm trying to find it on the wiki here.
Dala.
Dala. Dala, she I love her for the reasoning of she knows that everyone is dead. Everyone is dead, and she's like, it's my empire now.
Yep.
I'm gonna take over the galaxy. I'm like, what? Like, you have a couple star destroyers, and what we will learn is what is dubbed the Sun Destroyer,
Sun
uh,
Crusher.
Sun Crusher. Sorry, Sun Crusher. Um, and so it's like, holy crap! This woman thinks that it is going to be one fleet versus the entire galaxy, and she thinks she's going to win. Granted, once you actually learn what the Sun Crusher does, I would also be as confident as her as well. But it's wild. She like I want to see how she interacts with all the other characters because with this book, the only character she did really interact with was Han.
The so um I will disagree with you on the chapter where she talks about like her background and everything and like about Tarkin and stuff because I thought that was important to know about her character. Like the imperial regulations for female haircuts are like they have to be buzzed short and she
Yes.
chooses to grow her hair out in this case and like embrace like oh I'm in charge so I get to do what I want here kind of thing. And so I just think that adds a lot to her character.
Well, I
Um
think so too. There was even a moment where Han Solo saw her and was
yeah.
like, "Oh shit, hold on. Like she's breaking all the rules and she's a woman? Like Tarkin
Yeah.
is a racist and a sexist and she's in charge? Holy shit."
Yeah.
Like that's his thought process and I was like, "Okay, well maybe this woman does have like something to actually fear." And she legitimately does. She has she I she has not yet a voice and like I feel like she could have been a Thrawn.
Yeah. And
Or
so
or what Thrawn should have been, not my Thrawn.
so
My thought of Thrawn is kind of stupid, but what everybody thinks Thrawn should be, I feel like she could have definitely been that.
so now that we're into this book, I can tell you why I didn't want to review Fate of the Jedi series next and
Okay.
integrate that because that has an audiobook. She is the ruler of the Galactic Alliance in those books.
Oh, okay,
So I
okay.
didn't want it to kind of get intermixed. But she has a very big transformation over the 30 years between this book and the start of the Fate of the Jedi series. And I won't go into details on her in Fate of the Jedi. I'll leave it at that. But yes, that is why
Okay.
we could not go into that series.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, I really dig her character. Like guys, when I say she has a little bit of the crazy juice, there's a moment where she is arguing with a scientist over a hollow and she pulls out her blaster like she's gonna blow his brains out through the hollow. I'm like, that's not gonna work, woman. And then she even has this thought process of like, oh, it's gonna cost me a lot more to get this projection fixed than it would be
Yeah.
to hire another scientist. So I'm just not gonna, you know, blast this blaster, and she puts it away and then she goes upon her day. um she's wild. um I dig it. I want to see more from her. I want to see, like I said, her interact with these other characters so that way I can see how much of an adversary she can be, because like even Han was like, when she when he looked at her he was like, hey, she's not half bad, but like at the same time, she's like pure evil because of course she's in the Empire. Um, which I think is absolutely hilarious how Han can still be thinking that way when it comes to women, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Um Also fun fact, as I'm reading the Wikipedia for this book, um Dala has the Grand Moff uh rank on her chest insignia. but is actually an admiral, in case anyone was curious.
I was curious with the I mean, just the again, with the way she presents herself here on this cover of this book, I was like, "Oh, she's going to be like a Thrawn level threat." And so that makes sense to have like I feel like also because there's a line that she even says in this book. She's like, "Tarkin's dead. It's my fleet now. I make all the rules." Like she was away from all civilization for 15 years. I feel like after the first like 8, she was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just put this on my uniform, and this is gonna be mine now."
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. Um, but yes, okay. So let's go to Kessel so we can kind of get through that part of the story and then talk about the other main new character that's
Mhm.
introduced there. So Han and Chewie go to Kessel with the intent of making nice and becoming the New Republic ambassadors to Kessel to try and reestablish communication and trade routes and actually form trade routes through Kessel so it's no longer illicit spice mining but legal spice mining. And instead, they're greeted by blasters, and the Falcon crashes because we find out that the guy who is in charge of Kessel is actually the guy that paid the ultimate price for Han tossing his spice on the run that he was doing for Jabba. Jabba came to Kessel and took an eye off of Morith Duel. So Han and Chewie are then enslaved into the spice mines where they meet a new character, Kip Duran. So that's kind of like your basic summary to get us to that point. So,
Yeah, so Duel, he is another character that, he was the very twirly mustache type of villain. You learn a little bit of his background. Han keeps referencing him as like, "Oh, he was an old buddy of mine," and that's why he's trying to kill us. Um, he's dealt with Jabba before, uh, and because of Han, he lost an eye and was half blinded in the other. Um, and he basically overthrew a warden here on Kessel, and he, is now running the place, doing spice mining. Um, I I dig this idea of like there being some sort of like what's the right phrasing? Not like a militia, but like
a
just a whole bunch.
militia.
It basically is a militia, just a whole bunch of thugs, just like, hey, we rule this planet. We're doing what we want and making a whole bunch of money doing it. So why not? And we don't even have to get our hands dirty because we can just capture whoever we need to and throw them into the pitch black mines of spice, which is absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Just the thought about it all. Um, but
What did
yeah,
you think
I
about getting the glitter stem effects? I know this is it's probably your first exposure to glitter stem, right?
Yes, well, glitter stem when referenced in the book, I felt like I had heard it before, but I don't remember where. I don't know if it was referenced in Clone Wars at all or anything else. It just sounded like something that I had quite possibly seen or heard of from a different source. I don't know if like the High Republic has dealt with any type.
So, in canon, it made its first appearance in Battlefront Twilight Company. It has also been in Tempest Runner and the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, actually, part 2.
Tempest Runner.
Yep.
That's where it would have been in the High Republic Tempest Runner. Um, so yeah, that's where I had heard it from. But the idea that like, oh, it can only be mined in complete and utter darkness, otherwise it's ruined. And they're like, oh, by the way, nobody could have any type of technology that could give them the upper hand to, escape. So you have to literally do this all in pitch blackness. Um,
Yep.
Absolutely terrifying. Because there's even moments like Han doesn't know how many days have passed
Yeah.
in the dark, and that's like holy shit. Like he doesn't like it's terrifying. Um, but I was a little worried for Han and Chewie. Now again, I understand that, you're not gonna have me read the death of Han Solo and Chewbacca firsthand and just be like, well, you not mention anything. And plus, we've had in conversations in passing about this about Chewbacca's eventual death in Legends. So I
Yes.
knew this was not gonna be it. But like the first firefight in this entire book, like Han has the worst luck in this
Yep.
entire book. Out of everybody, he has the worst luck. And it just keeps going down and down and down for him. He he gets shot down by TIE fighters. And then when he thinks he's being rescued by an X-Wing, the X-Wing shoots him down. Like he's like it's the worst. Like, and then there's a description at one point when he is able to like open his eyes after the crash onto Kessel. Like he just sees Chewbacca just like gushing blood all over his fur. It's
Yep.
like holy shit! Like what's happening to these two? So yeah, like it was just a horrible experience for Han. I'm so sorry. Um, and I have a thing to say about the Skywalker, like Leia and Luke both. Leia having this like stupid ego about like not wanting to be worried about Han, but instead saying, "Oh, he must have found some mistress, or maybe he's, going out gambling and going out with some of his buddies." Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you just freaking saved the galaxy with this guy, and you're already thinking after freaking 3 children, oh, he's just gonna go out and have some fun and not remember you guys for 2 weeks.
Now, okay, let's remember this was the 90s, and this is a male writing this book.
I understand. I understand, which also goes to my point about Luke. This whole idea about so many people loving Luke from the Legends novels. Like, oh, this was the Luke Skywalker that we always wanted, blah, blah. He's a dick. The way he talks to Leia. And I understand there's this idea of like, oh, it's brother and sister, they butt heads, blah, blah. There's some shit that he says in this book that I'm like, dude, fuck off. Like
He
he straight up says to Leia, "Oh, well, if you were a Jedi, this would be so much easier for you." Like basically is verbatim what he says. And it's like she's a diplomat, she's a
Yep.
mother, and you're wanting her to be a Jedi. Like
Yeah.
and
If you
there's a whole
not
there's a whole
there to the
moment at
Empire trilogy.
there's a whole moment near the end of the book where like there's just so many things being asked of Leia that she basically explodes right in front of Mon Mothma, which
It was
it,
so
it's
great.
it's so good because she like actually tells somebody like, "Hey, you need to understand that like the New Republic will still be around in the next 3 hours. I'm gonna be a mother right now." Um, but still, like it's just like I I guess I'm a feminist for this, but like the way that they treat Leia in this book, I didn't like it.
No, I can definitely agree with that. Um, and so you know where Luke is coming from, right? Because we kind of talked about this, where he goes to
So
the
yeah,
dark side
so
with
I've
Palpatine.
always known about this because my brother is really big into the Legends novels. I had always told him, "Hey, I'm not going to read Legends until I'm absolutely forced to," and here Katie is forcing me to read Legends. But it's for the content of the podcast, and I'm totally fine with that. But he had told me about this idea that Luke had gone to the dark side. And I was like, okay, interesting, but how? And I need, and I don't know if it's going to be necessarily in our reading criteria in the next few years or so, but the Thrawn trilogy we've already read,
Yep.
and now we're reading this. There's this moment, this whole like, oh, he's been the Emperor's right hand man, the resurrected Emperor's right hand man. And then there's another moment when we learn about the character that Han meets.
Mhm.
They met an old woman by a name that
Vima
I
Debota.
Debota. And then Han remembers, oh, I remember her. Me and Leia. Where's that story? Like, there was these two references in this book, and I'm like, I'm already lost. Like, what's going on?
So according to so yes, they did meet her in the Dark Empire trilogy um series of comic books. So that is where they met her. Was in
In a comic book. Okay.
Yes, that the Dark Empire is where Luke turns to the dark side.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
right.
that
That's
whole
right.
comic.
Yeah. It's actually, I believe, on the GUA podcast network with Katie and Chris over at World's Finest True Believers. If you want to listen
Yes,
to
we did volume 1 specifically.
it, very cool. Okay, so I'll need to reference that later, um, if I ever want to read that. But the I this
So
whole
what did
thing.
you
Well, go
Sorry,
ahead. Go
okay,
ahead.
go ahead. I was gonna ask you about Kip, but go
So
ahead.
yes, Kip. Kip is interesting. I want to know more about Kip because Luke, very smart of him, is thinking about this whole idea of a Jedi Academy, and he is very confident in his abilities. It shows in this book that he is confident in him being a Jedi Knight. Interesting that people call him a Jedi Master, but he references himself as a Jedi Knight. Um,
Yeah, he's dealing with a lot of confidence issues.
but there is a moment in this book where when he's thinking about everything, he's like, okay, how am I, the only person that's going to be teaching these people, going to be strong enough if one, if not more, decide to go to the dark side? And that's a great way of thinking. Instead of being like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna do this. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna be the best teacher in the world, and I'm gonna teach all these people about the Force, and we're gonna be Jedi's, and we're gonna, you know, save the Republic. It's gonna be great." No, to have that backup plan, to think about this, and then we get Kip. I am very intrigued by Kip because, of course, we learn through the navigation of the mall that he has these gifts, for being a potential Jedi and everything else. They are then, of course, captured by this team of Imperials in the mall, the eye of the mall, should I say? And he is captured. He is, in his cell, and he starts to think, and he starts to ponder, and he's like, I will never be stuck and useless and helpless ever again.
Yep.
And he like is thinking about these very bad things, and he like gets like a small little movement of like his food tray or his spoon. I can't remember which one it was, but it verbally says, like, in the book, it says like he has the thought, oh, maybe anger is the way to go to really reach the potential of my powers.
Mhm.
We all know, oh no, that's a big no-no. Let's not go there. But he didn't mention it to Luke at all when he finally meets Luke.
Mhm,
He like that is just like left out in the air, out in the open. I want to know more about that. Like I want to see the obstacles that Luke is now going to have to go through with Kip because Luke happens to fall upon this very interesting way to find out if people have the abilities of using the force by this little knot on people's brains basically
mhm.
in their self-conscious brain or whatnot that if you end up touching it in some sort of fashion that a force sensitive individual has the reflexes to knock an individual back. And so Luke Skywalker tests this on everybody that he knows might be force sensitive, and doing it with Kip seemed to have the strongest reaction. So I'm like, okay, Kip has a lot of power. Why? Because again, I think it's stupid to think this way, but it's just the way that a lot of people in Star Wars thinks is nobody in Star Wars can be a nobody. We learn this through the whole idea of like being a Skywalker, blah blah, and we've had this discussion before. So is this the same thought process that I need to have with Kip? Like, is he somebody that I should know? Is he related to somebody that we do know? Like, it's these are all the things that wound in my mind while reading this. So and it may not be. And
Um,
he may be some random individual. So,
so yes, I will go ahead and tell you he's purely random.
okay.
Um, he goes to play a bigger part in future stories, obviously, but like before now, you don't know anything. Like I just had to check his Wikipedia, but yeah, doesn't have anything really.
Okay. I won't look. I won't peek. We'll see how it goes. But I am very interested in Kip. Um, with the powers that he showed and navigating them all, and just that one glimmer of like, oh, if I get really angry, that's how I use these powers. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with the last two books.
I hope so. I really enjoyed this one. This one, like I said, I read this one, I think in like 2, 3 days, 4 days. So it
Yeah.
was fairly quick on my end. Um, so we'll see how the other two go. I should be picking up the other two books from the library in the next day or two.
Gotcha. Yeah, this one is 384 pages, 29 chapters, and an epilogue. So if you're intimidated by the Kindle, please don't be because I had to figure this out the hard way where like you actually finish the book at like 70% left. Or no, 70% complete. And so then you have 30% left. They actually included in the Kindle, they have like 6 or 7 like preview chapters for the Old Republic.
For
Um
the other books, yes.
yeah.
So for me, I'll go ahead and say this. Like I was reading it, and when it showed something that like had zero to do with any of the book that I had just finished, I was like, I'm done. I'm not even gonna like. Yeah, I might read these, and jump into them. But I believe it was because it wasn't the next book. It was I can't remember what it was. Let me see if I can
It
find it.
goes through the timeline and it does it that way.
Okay.
Um But yeah, this was not one of the first Star Wars books that I read, but it is, I think, the most interesting, especially after exploring Dark Empire with Chris. Just kind of getting into those vibes of Luke trying to build his academy. Uh, it's just all was all very. interesting to me. And I do have issues with Leia, obviously, in this book. I think Anderson does a better job in the next 2 books with her, but, like, I think Anderson does a really good job overall with this one, and trying to pick up, like, where to go next from, the Heir to the Empire trilogy. I mean, the Heir to the Empire trilogy, especially back then, was tough to follow. Like, it was one of like, because we talked about it, it was a hugely popular, re-entry for Star Wars fans to get back into, the IP, and so to follow up that trilogy, it's just big shoes to fill, and so I think ultimately, while we get more super weapons, they never leave, just letting you know in Legends in case you're curious, but yeah, I
It's ridiculous. Like learning about the Sun Crusher. Well, I will say, that character, her name
Kweezoo.
Zoom. Yes, Qui. I actually like her as a character just because she is, of course, like basically tortured into becoming like this great mind for the Empire, mentally tortured. Um,
Mhm.
and then like she's like, "Oh, I'm making the galaxy a better place." And then Han's the one that opens her eyes and it's like, "Listen to what you are making. Star Destroyer, Death Star, Sun Crusher. Like these things aren't making the galaxy any better. Like
Did you say
just with the
World Devastator?
names." Huh?
Did you say World Devastator already?
Yeah, World Devastator was another one. And he told her like, "Hey, like it destroyed friggin' the Devastators destroyed Mon Calamari. Uh you know, the Death Star destroyed several planets. Like it's so crazy how she was so blinded. And she even says like, "Oh, I wasn't really blinded. I just chose not to think about that because what else could I do?" And
Yeah.
then for her to finally be like, "Okay, like Han has woken me up. I am no longer a defective to the Empire. We're getting out of here, and the only way we're getting out of here is with the Sun Crusher because you know they can't have the weapon I created." Um,
Yeah.
which, by the way, Han using the Sun Crusher to ram through a Star Destroyer, absolutely amazing,
Yes.
absolutely amazing. So really fun stuff.
Yeah. Alrighty, well, I think that brings us to the end, unless you have any final thoughts.
Um, I am looking forward to the next 2 books. Um, I did like the trials that, uh,
Gantoris?
Gantoris made for Luke, to kinda prove himself. Because like, it I like the way that they wrote Luke in this for this one instance, where he's, like, saving these people, and then, like, Luke finds out that he was too late for one individual, and like even he like there was almost a moment where I thought like there's a conversation that Gantoris and Luke were having, and Luke was like, just ask me and I'll answer any questions. I'll do whatever I can to help, blah blah blah. And I literally thought Gantoris was gonna be like, okay, well, if you're an all powerful Jedi, bring him back to life. Like,
Yeah.
it got to that point where I'm just like, he's gonna ask him the impossible just so that way he can't join his Jedi Academy.
Yeah.
And with this trial, it was fun. The lava, the lava worm, and all of that. It's all good in good fun and whatnot. But like, I like the deep emotional moments, and I want more of those as we move forward.
Yeah. Definitely. No, they're really good. And it'll just continue to grow, especially as we get into the academy, in this, next book. So, yes, we will be talking about, I think it's Dark Apprentice. Yeah, Dark Apprentice is book 2 of the series. We're gonna be talking about that one, December 27th, is the live date. December 28th is the podcast release. So that is when, if you're following along with us, you've got 2 weeks to read, book 2 and get caught up. Next week, we are going to be talking about Claudia Gray's Master and Apprentice, which follows, Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi as they go to this planet. I can't remember the planet's name, but they get to meet Qui-Gon's first apprentice. And kind of we learn a lot more about Qui-Gon in the time period, everything. And I think it's Qui-Gon's first apprentice. Anyways. So Clay, tell us where they can find you.
Of course, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter and any and all social media. Um, if you want to follow me on twitch.tv, you can follow me at twitch.tv slash fanboyclay10, fanboyclay10. So check me out there. Um, I am also here on the network with Ranger Alliance. I'm currently taking a break from Batman News Weekly. There's still some time management stuff that I'm trying to work out here in Indiana with my job. It's not leaving me too much room to make content for that podcast and do everything else with that. So I'm currently taking a break, trying to figure out some of that, and hopefully I'm going to get it down here pretty soon. But look out for that. Like we teased, me and Katie have some stuff in store with the Patreon. So if you would like to join that, go ahead and join that as well. And also, talking about getting logged out of everything, Katie, I don't have the Star Wars Alliance Gmail on my new phone. So for like a month, I haven't had, and I haven't seen if like David or anybody has emailed us. So I need to double check.
um, so David has emailed us. He responded back to our initial one, which I never sent out an email, guys. Sorry, saying that we were coming back to Wednesday lives. I'm sorry. Um, he did say, I just finished The Eye of Darkness. This was November 26th, so it's been 2 weeks, David. I'm sorry. Um, he said, I just finished The Eye of Darkness and I'm eager to hear y'all's thoughts. So yeah, go back to that episode, David. You know where it's at. And I hope you enjoyed the review and liked what we said. Let us know if you disagreed with anything we said.
I will also need to go back and listen to that because I had only listened to the
Oh
non-spoiler section, so I need to go back and listen to that. And then maybe when we jump into our next High Republic book, I'll give my thoughts on Eye of Darkness.
Yes. Well, y'all, you can find me on most social media platforms. It is at Slice of Katie. The show you can find on Twitter. It's at Star Wars Lance with the A in the Wars. Very important. Don't forget it. I don't have the banner in front of me, but you can also email us at that same username at gmail.com. And Clay, you can leave us a voicemail or text us at the following number.
It is 830-538-4828. Just text or call and leave a message. I will not answer just because I want you guys to leave a voicemail so we can play it here on the show. Now, remember, I do vex these before they are played. So, it's nearly Christmas time. Santa's going to know if you're naughty or nice. So just like keep it nice, We don't want to have to put any coal in any Christmas stockings, okay? So just chill out a little bit. But when it comes to any of the stuff that we talked about here earlier today, whether it be the comments on Bendiction or Raylo to even jump into all of that, or the Mandalorian season 4 being either a movie or a TV series, you want to say anything about that, you can always give us a call or a text. Just leave some sort of username or name in general so we can at least address you. Don't share any personal information with us just because, just be a little bit smarter on the interwebs. Don't want to dox anybody on accident. So just keep that in mind.
Yes. But for now, guys, we hope you guys have a great day or night, whatever time of day you are listening or watching, and we will see y'all next time. May the force be with you. Are you gonna click the button? I can't
Okay.
click the button.